Welcome back, Dermacom fans. One of the things we didn't talk about in our first series of videos was the notion in 5th edition of line of sight rules when firing. That means that, let's assume that these two guys are independent characters so they can stand by themselves. If one model cannot see the other, they can't fire. The new rules for 5th edition are basically true line of sight. It allows you to use very complex scenery like the stuff that we showed earlier that Dale has built. In this instance right here, we're utilizing kind of a mountain piece of impassable terrain, and if you kind of look over top of the mountain, you'll notice that there is no line that you can draw from one model to the next so that they have line of sight. In this instance, it would mean that the two can't fire against one another. This complexity gets harder to understand, so we wanted to review it when you deal with larger squads than just one. With one, you kind of know, you come down and you look from this model's point of view and you go, can I see the other guy? And the answer is no. That means you can't fire on him. Really, really straightforward. But what happens when you have guys that can sometimes see the other guys? We'll review that right now. Now let's review what happens with this same piece of scenery. Let's say this is in the middle of a battle, and you can kind of see that as you work your way around. If I'm playing from the darker Marines fighting against the lighter Marines, that there clearly are some Marines that can see some of the Marines that are in white. Same can be said from the other direction. That from the white side of the army, they definitely have line of sight to see some of the guys that are suited up in black power armor. So how do you resolve this? You know, can any of them fire on any of them, since there are some that can see and some that can't see? Well, 5th edition has made it very, very straightforward on how you handle this event. What happens is you look through and determine which of them do have line of sight. So, for instance, if I look from straight over, I can kind of tell that this guy can see some of the guys in the darker squad, and this guy can see some of the guys in the darker squad, more the ones at the end. But the other two polar colored Space Marines don't have any line of sight to any of the dark colored Space Marines, as you can see here. The piece of terrain is just simply blocking their line of sight. The rule states that if you have any guys that can see any of the other guys, you can fire. However, only those guys who can see any of the other models are allowed to fire. So if I'm shooting in the shooting phase and I'm in the polar Space Marines, only these two final guys over here can fire on the black power armored Space Marines. Now, there's an additional rule, and it deals with the notion of cover saves. Now, we haven't gone into a great deal about what a cover save is, and we'll review all that at a later date, but for those of you who are familiar with what a cover save is, the rule states that the majority of the firing army has to see the majority of the far army in order for there not to be a cover save. Okay? So if I was to take this piece of scenery and scoot it down so that now 3 of my guys and this guy over here can see farther down on the black power armor side, you can see right here. So now I have a majority. 3 of my guys can see the majority of the black power armored Space Marines. The black power armored Space Marines do not get a cover save. Once again, the rule clearly states you take the majority of your squad. So in a 4-man squad, you have to have 3 guys that can see the majority of the opponent's units in a particular squad. And in this case, you have 6 Marines in black power armor, so 3 of the white guys have to see at least 4 of the guys in the black power armor in order for there to be no cover save. If I can't get that, then that means the guys in the black power armor get a 4-up cover save. Now there's going to be times where the decision-making process is going to be really tough. For instance, in this case, where clearly this guy can see guys over there, and this guy can see a few guys over there, and it becomes really close. It's splitting hairs. In times like that, there is actually an additional rule in the 5th edition rule books, which basically you negotiate what the cover save should be. So if it's really, really close, maybe you'll say, okay, the guys in the black power armor get a 5-up cover save instead of a 4-up cover save. A 5-up cover save, in order to actually take advantage of it, means you have to roll a 5 or a 6, as opposed to a 4-up cover save where you can roll a 4, 5, or 6. So again, this is the notion of line of sight, and again, we'll kind of review what cover saves and armor saves are in more detail in one of the later videos.